My name is Edward Macmillan, founder of The Bridge, an English theatre for Brussels. And I'm welcoming you to this podcast about creating a theatre, an English theatre in Brussels. I'm a trained actor and singer with prior experience as a business owner and also as a European civil servant working here in Brussels for the European Commission until recently. So in this very first episode, I want to take a bit of a little retrospective look at the idea for the bridge and where I'm coming from per se and why I think Brussels needs an English theatre. And I also want to fill you in a little bit on where we are now and our plans for the future. So to help me do this, I've invited my good friend Phil Wilcox to join me so that we can have a conversation about the bridge and also, perhaps, if we have time, the role of the arts in society more generally. So welcome, Phil. Thanks for coming along.
Hello. Hi, Ed. Thanks very much for having me.
Hi. So maybe just tell the listener a little bit about yourself.
So I am a musician and I live in London, UK at the moment. And I work mostly in vocal music. So I'm a singer. I sing opera and consort stuff. That's singing with choirs. I also direct choirs and I work quite a lot in education as well. I'm the Learning and Participation Manager for Leader, which involves directing a sort of school's education programme. But we know each other from a long time ago.
Indeed we do. And maybe I should just say at this point that I've invited Phil because I think it's really important that we have a voice of the people here. And Phil is that voice of the people. So
Wow.
someone who knows the arts but isn't necessarily involved in theatre in the strictest sense of the word, although he is involved in theatre in terms of opera and performing and concert making.
I've done some work with the RSC, thank you very much.
Indeed, yes. So maybe I should not.
But it's also been great because I've been a bit of a sounding board, as I know a number of your close friends work in various capacities in the arts as directors, actors, musicians, etc. So, and I know you've called upon a lot of us to be a bit of a sounding board for your ideas for the bridge. So it's really great to have a chat and spread that message a little bit further. So with that in mind, Ed, tell us about the bridge. What is the bridge?
I mean, in its essence, it is an English language theatre. So it is a theatre that will connect multilingual Brussels to English language talent. And I see this as being a producing house, essentially, a theatre that creates its own works, and it will produce around 5 professional theatre shows in English every year.
Okay, and it's going to be based in Brussels. What sort of feeling do you get about the market for this sort of theatre in Brussels? Is there something like it already?
So no, there isn't anything like it in Brussels, which surprises me. I mean, so the population of Brussels is enormously diverse. 35% of the population of Brussels is not Belgian, and around 40% do speak English to some fluency, so to some degree. So you do have this enormous market here for theatre that is not in the native languages here. And Brussels, as you know, Phil, is a bilingual city, I should say. So that's French and Dutch. And then English is another language which
But I assume it's not just, this isn't going to be a sort of theatre Duolingo device, is it? It's not just about people who want to immerse themselves in English as a language, although I'm sure it will pay dividends in people who want to learn English and experience English theatre. You have a broader cultural idea about it, isn't it? Tell us about that.
No, indeed. Yes, okay, it's going to be a theatre in English, showing Brussels the very best of English language theatre, of talent, but I want to use this theatre as a platform, if you will, to promote certain values that are close to my heart. So I want it to be a vehicle for promoting progressive values and also for promoting sustainability, particularly environmental sustainability. And I would do that by showing plays and other productions which are relevant. So the name of the bridge is extremely important as well. This name hasn't just come from nowhere. I want it to be a bridge itself. So a bridge between people, for example, a bridge of ideas, and there is a history behind this bridge this name, the bridge, which maybe we'll talk about a bit later. But it goes back to really the divisive politics that we have seen in the past few years, and also the division that I see here in Brussels between the many groups that are here, and trying to forge a society that is somehow cohesive in a very diverse place.
So it sounds like this is going to be actually quite a lot more than a theatre, more than the bricks and mortar and a stage and a pit and that sort of stuff. What else is planned in the concept of the bridge?
Yes, indeed. So we have the productions. That's going to be the main event, let's see. But an extremely important component of the bridge is going to be its educational component. So we're going to have a theatre academy, which is going to be initially for children, but then it may extend to adults as well, so that they can immerse themselves and gain from the benefits of theatre in English. So in a way, it's a double benefit. But I mean, this is for both native speakers and non-native speakers, and this will be a weekend school doing classes in drama, in singing, in dance. But then we'll also be taking some workshops, usually hopefully related to the productions that are showing, and bringing them to the schools in Brussels. So again, this double objective really of, yes, enforcing English, but really it's about the theatre and getting involved in drama and realising the benefits that being involved in drama can give young people, be that confidence, presentation skills, learning to work with other people. There are so many benefits, and I think that the bridge can help to give these values, to enable people to learn these values, which will, in the future, enable people to bridge across to other people.
It's brilliant, isn't it? And of course, like I said earlier, I do a lot of music education, and I like to think that we don't have to shout the message from the rooftop anymore, but I think we kind of still do. That engaging with the arts, whatever arts they are, visual arts, musical arts, theatre, drama, etc., at a young age is so important, not only in the ways that you've just mentioned there, in a sort of societal way, you're talking about engaging with other people, ways to engage, being a sort of almost like a good example to how engage with society at large, but also the benefits of mental health, physical health even, if you're engaging in dance or music, singing, things, and actually a lot of it branches over into actors training, things about the breath, how do you use your body? It's so broadly encompassing, and I worry sometimes that certainly the sort of education field certainly in England at the moment does seem to be focusing far too much on attainment and sort of math, science and English, all very important subjects, but not quite enough on the arts. So actually to have something extracurricular that the bridge will offer is hugely important, isn't it?
I mean, what's interesting, Phil, is you concentrate on the children, which is absolutely true, and I think we could broaden this to also include adults. I mean, these skills are vital for adults to be able to function in today's world, be that in a business setting or maybe in their own personal relationships as well. So this is why, above and beyond the educational component, we're actually going to also be bringing theatre to businesses, so using the power of theatre to help businesses as well.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of transferable skills, isn't there? I've noticed this, again, training in the arts, coming across lots of actors who have a bit of a side hustle, as they might call it, in presentation training, or musicians who go into offices. For example, I run a few office choirs, an hour a week where people in an office can, come away from their working desk, sing with me for an hour, go back feeling refreshed and working really, really well. I think businesses are really clued up to this idea now. Again, mental well-being, physical health.
I mean, I have to say, especially on singing in a choir or singing with other people, the benefits of that are now very widely accepted, I think, and I think it's a great thing that you do there. I mean, within Brussels itself, there are actually a lot of actors already, not actors, but a lot of people already offering businesses workshops on presentation skills or public speaking or how to be in front of a camera. So I see that market is already fully tapped in a way. And so I wanted to use theatre in a different way for businesses. And I think that's more to do with the internal relationships within a business rather than it's how it presents itself externally. So we want to offer experiential learning opportunities where people in businesses or particularly managers can learn skills that they can use in the workplace. And this might be things like having a difficult conversation with colleagues, for example, and how to actually approach that and what the other person might be thinking. And you can explore these real world situations through drama.
This is really interesting to hear you talk about it. I hadn't considered it from that, but it speaks to your politico-diplomatic experience in which you've worked in for quite a lot of your life. So you've got the bridge, the entity. You've got 2 or 3 prongs to it, haven't you? You've got the theatre. You mentioned 4 or 5 productions, in-house productions each year. You've got your education wing, which is fantastic. The academy at the weekends, going into schools as well and getting them engaged, getting young people and the wider community, adults as well, engaging with your productions. And then you've got a sort of, if I say, maybe call it a corporate side as well. It's an amazing operation you're trying to set up. Do you see this being a sort of physical space? Are you looking for premises? Do you have something?
Yes, I would love it to be a physical space. I mean, currently, we're far too early in the day to be talking about that, but I am already exploring opportunities to find a permanent home for the bridge, and with a permanent home, you could open even more avenues to connect with the local population. So, for example, by having an on-site cafe or bar where people can come in and just spend their time, have a coffee, meet friends. I would love that to also be a venue for live music in the evenings, for example. Right. And then you could also have art galleries there, art exhibitions. And so having a space of our own would really enable us to fulfill a vision of being much more locally integrated for a start, and building an audience and nurturing a relationship with an audience. And also, having the flexibility to really do what we want. But we're not there yet. So currently, the first stage before we really have a permanent home is to find a temporary home. So that will be the first stage.
It's great because it makes me, when you sort of say about the cafe and the fact that you're going to have maybe some art up on the walls, you're going to engage with the real local living nearby you community. It makes me think of some of the nicest theatres that I've played at in the is touring, doing lots of sort of fringe touring opera and things like that, going to beautiful smaller theatres in smaller communities which draw a good audience to their shows, and you look around and you realise it's because they've got a great space. It's a versatile space for the theatre, for the companies that are coming in. But it's also a lovely space for the community to come and spend time. You've got the cafe, you've got some art going. There's a local artist selling art on the walls. It really. I think, and it really pays back to the community that it's in as well, if it becomes a sort of central cultural point for the locals.
I mean, I completely agree, Phil. And one of my inspirations is the South Bank Centre in London, where I used to spend a lot of time. And it's a public space, essentially, which they have reclaimed. And you can go in there. You don't actually have to buy anything there, although it's nicer to do that, and you can use it. I've used it just to work. There's also the National Theatre just next door where you can also just go in and enjoy the space, and I think that's really something really special, especially in Northern Europe, where the climate isn't always so good and you just want somewhere to go which is comfortable and welcoming as well.
And creative in its nature. Brilliant. So how did the idea come about? Did you just wake up one day, ping, I'm going to make a theatre, or how did you come to it?
It's a long story, Phil. I mean, until very recently, I was working in the European Commission. I entered that kind of political, let's say, job because I wanted to help improve people's daily lives. So at the European Commission, I was working in development cooperation. So working with countries outside of the European Union to really build up their capacities in order to provide for the people of these countries. And this was, this was enjoyable. It was fulfilling, but there was always something missing, and it took me a while to really place it. And in the end, I realized it was this act of creating theatre specifically, which I missed, and I missed it from my days of being a performer, and also before that, when I was a student, I directed and produced various shows. So I have this like bug inside me. I guess it is the theatre bug, unfortunately, as cliche as that is. And it was coming out. It was making me want to create and want to do things. So I had this drive, and then in a way, it just occurred to me one day, as I said in the beginning, why does Brussels not have an English language theatre? I mean, these are everywhere in Europe, particularly in German-speaking places. You have an excellent English theatre in Frankfurt, in Munich, Berlin, Hamburg. There's one in The Hague, which is very good. And I was like, well, but Brussels, I just feel that Brussels, with its big expat community, the seat of the European Commission, of NATO, and the fact that it is this complex bilingual city where actually the lingua franca is sliding from French to English, and you see it more and more in cultural institutions here that English is used. I was just kind of surprised and amazed that there wasn't one here before.
And of course, it's so well connected as well, Brussels, isn't it? It's so easy to get to, from, and around.
Exactly. And also with the UK, I mean, with the Eurostar 2 hours on the train, it makes it from London. It makes it in a way ideal from that point of view. Also for me personally, I am British. I would like to be able to go back to the UK easily, and so it makes the commute, let's call it, very easy. So I had this idea of making a theatre, and it was actually really, I guess, Brexit ultimately that made me really think about this seriously. I mean, Brexit affected me personally in terms of my job, not immediately, but there is the long-term ramifications of a Brit working in the European Commission. But then it was also the wider political context of, Brexit was a sign that we are living in a more polarized world, and I was really seeing this in the UK with the divide between the Leavers and the Remainers. But this was this kind of polarization was happening all around the world, and particularly in Europe. And so I wanted to proactively respond to this, essentially.
So Brexit was a bit of a catalyst then for you?
Absolutely.
So with all that in mind then, and obviously you've touched on your theatre background, but just unpack a little bit why a theatre, because as so many theatres now, I certainly see in the ones I visit in the UK, you mentioned actually the big names, the South Bank Centre, the National Theatre, etc. But also I think of small community theatres as well. So many of them are having to offer this sort of community basis, whether they operate outreach programmes or they have the cafe, the sort of front-facing, public-facing entity to them, if you will. Why a theatre specifically? Why not just open an English language cafe?
Yeah, I mean, theatre is my roots, and I wanted to go back there, but it's more than that. I think that theatre, it's a vehicle through which you can communicate ideas, and I think there's nothing quite like theatre for doing this. You have a collection of people all sat together, all with their focus on the stage, all experiencing the same thing objectively, but maybe subjectively their takeaway experience is slightly different, and watching these live people do something live in front of you makes you kind of maybe appreciate a story in a different way than you would, for example, a film in the cinema, or for certain a film at home where you're distracted, you're watching the film and you might just check your phone, or you might go to the toilet or whatever. But like at the theatre, your focus is on the play, on the action. So then you can use this focus to really get people to think, maybe not consciously, but maybe subconsciously, think about different ideas and present different views or perspectives that maybe they hadn't encountered before. And I think that's a very powerful thing.
It's funny, isn't it? There's a certain amount of, I hesitate to say it because it's not quite the positive term I want to use, but mob mentality as an audience. You can hear it when something shocking happens on stage, and throughout the whole theatre, or you can tell if an audience likes a character, doesn't like a character, and why that is. It's interesting, isn't it, to be an audience, if that's the right singular, to be part of a bigger mob.
It is the perennial mystery. Why are when you're a performer or involved in theatre, some audiences are good, quote unquote, some are bad, and because they have a good reaction or they have a bad reaction. But why that is the case, and why a certain set of group of people react in a certain way and others in a different way is. Who knows why. But it is amazing that it really taps into this inner human psyche of the sheep mentality, I think. I have to say, like following everyone else, but really you're wrapped up as a group. You're not an individual. You're participating in a group exercise. In many ways, it's kind of like a secular church. You are there to witness what is happening, and you're having this collective experience.
Amen. So this wonderful group of people who are coming to the Bridge, who you're trying to entice in to see these wonderful productions you're going to put on and engage, come and have tea at the cafe and engage with all of the participation and outreach that you're running. Who are they? How are you going to make sure? I think it's a big thing at the moment to make sure that it's possible for everyone to experience the arts, because it can be, dare I say it, elitist. How are you going to make sure that everybody is going to benefit from this wonderful project?
Yes, Phil. I mean, you're touching on a salient point, let's say. I mean, Brussels is quite a divided city, I have to say. So you do have this kind of expat bubble, let's say, working with the international institutions, the lobbying world around it, and they live in certain areas of the city. And then you have people who are from Brussels itself, and they live in other areas of the city. And the two kind of worlds are quite divided. So, I mean, I have to admit that, of course, the theatre will be attractive for the expat, the more educated bubble. Okay, not just expats, also Belgians, who are living here, and they do make up a substantial proportion of the city. But this is theatre. I want to widen the net a bit, and we will try and put in place incentives and schemes to encourage local people from Brussels to come, and even if they can't speak English perfectly, that's absolutely fine. I think it's great to have this experience of theatre in another language, and I've experienced that myself, actually, having lived abroad and going to see theatre even if I don't understand. So there are various schemes that I want to put in place. One would be encouraging younger people to come through cheaper tickets for under 25s, for example. Another would be a pay what you want day for people of the local vicinity of the theatre. So there are two ways. But then there's another kind of strand, which would be, you want to see your life reflected on the stage as well. So in a way, that means if I want to be inclusive from my audience point of view, then there needs to be a certain amount that needs to be reflected on the stage. The inclusion needs to be reflected on the stage. So, while I don't have any particular quotas, let's say, about including people who are not like me, who are not white and male, and European, let's say in this context, I would like to make a diverse team, both behind the stage in terms of the actual management of the bridge. I would love a diverse team, but also then what we show on the stage, for that to be diverse it depends on the production. Of course, I can't say anything, but
It's true, isn't it? There's no point in being squeamish about it. We've got two white guys from southern England talking here in our rather round, received pronunciation accents. There's no point in being squeamish. Black and minority ethnic communities are underrepresented on stage at the moment and in positions of power within the arts. And until that morphs and moves on, it doesn't have to be through anything other than just conscious change. Then it will always stay that way, which is wrong. So, and you're right, because it's important that people see. I remember I worked a lot in Bradford a few years ago, which obviously has a very large Asian population, and I was going into primary schools, and I realised that I was sat there, and the kids that I was working with were so young and sweet and lovely, but I also was quite sort of aware of the fact that I was singing with them, telling them that they were able to do this, and sort of saying that a life in the arts is wonderful and engaging, and they were looking up at someone who didn't look like them. Now, at their age, that's actually not a problem, and that's really quite lovely. And actually going into a school now, in comparison to going to school when we were kids, is quite a different thing. I think kids, in a large respect, are fairly blind to the differences between themselves and the other children around them, which I think is amazing. And so you only become aware of that, I think, as an adult, and then grow up into society and realise, hang on, none of the people around this table look like me, in terms of going for a job or something like that. And then it becomes a problem, because then you're conscious of it. So the more that we can do to put people... to put a diverse team in places of power and on stage in front of people, the more likely it is that young people are going to see themselves on stage, see themselves in those positions, and aim for that as well, isn't it?
No, absolutely. I mean, I would only caveat what you said in that for children, perhaps they don't consciously feel it, but I think somewhere in their subconscious, it probably does sit like, oh, people like me, they don't do that, so I'm not going to aspire to do that because that's just not what people like me do. It's this very deep-seated, deep-rooted kind of perceptions of life. Whereas if you do see someone who looks like you on that stage, you're like, wow, that's really cool. I could do that. Awesome.
So where are we now? Where have you got up to?
So the state of play. I mean, we are still very much in the early stages of building this project. So currently we're trying to build the team, finalize the team that will really get this project off and running, and also looking into fundraising. I mean, the finances of theatre is extremely hard. So getting some kind of financial prospects from different financial partners, is incredibly important. There are plans afoot to do some things, but obviously COVID is a major factor, and the unpredictability of that. As we approach summer, things might change, and so I'm hoping to open the academy in September. So that will be the first public facing thing that the bridge will have. We may do something in the summer, but let's see how it goes. But the academy will open...
And that will be in a temporary place, I assume. That'll be in a temporary home.
Yes, and it may not be in the same place as we do productions. I mean, they may be in different places. Yeah. And then, this will run from September. It will run, roughly for 12-week terms. But the first production of the bridge will not take place until summer 2022. So we still have quite a way off before we actually get the ball really rolling, let's say.
So it sounds like a long way off, doesn't it? But in theatre terms, it's actually just around the corner, because by the time you've factored in rehearsals, planning, pre-production, etc., it's almost, you're on the road already, aren't you? It's really exciting.
Yeah, there's incredibly a lot to do between now and then, and I'm extremely excited about it. Very nervous, but I'm really up for the challenge, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the next 12 months, 18 months have in store.
That's amazing. So how can we help then? Final question. People are listening to this podcast and they think it's a fantastic idea. They like the sound of your voice, the cut of your jib. What can we do to get involved?
The first thing is get in contact. Send us your ideas, your thoughts, your comments. You know, I want the Bridge to be part of Brussels and part of the community here. So if you have an idea for how we can make the Bridge a better place, a better English language theatre for Brussels, then just let us know, and you can get in contact with us through Facebook or Instagram, thebridge.brussels. You can find us, or email us on info@thebridge.brussels. So that's the first thing. Also, please just tell your friends that this is coming in summer 2022. And finally, subscribe to this podcast, where we will have every month, we will release a new podcast about some different aspect of the theatre.
Well, there you go. That's how you do it. It's been a pleasure. It's been great fun. Thanks for having me along, Ed.
Phil, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much. And speak to you soon. You've been listening to How to Build a Theatre, a podcast brought to you by The Bridge and English Theatre for Brussels. The podcast was presented by me, Edward Macmillan, and Phil Wilcox, with music by Smith the Mister, available through audiolibrary.com.co. For further information, check out www.thebridge.brussels. See you next month.